Good evening and welcome to the Brookfield Zoning Commission regular meeting. Today's date is January 25th, 2024. The time is 7 p.m. and this meeting is being held in Town Hall Room number 133. At this time, would you please join me in Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to take the opportunity, though, to just welcome two of our new members, since this is my first time meeting them. Newly elected Commissioners Anthony Papucci and Sean Turner. Hi. Welcome. And also, I would like to raise a point of order, because it's come to my attention that we've had a Board of Selectmen appointment to fill a vacancy of an elected position, and I believe that that action was a violation of the town charter, because an unaffiliated was appointed to fill a Democrat position, and the town charter explicitly says that that is not allowed. And if I may, I'd like to read from the town charter, section C4-12, item B. It reads, in exercising the power herein conferred to fill vacancies with respect to elective offices or membership upon elective boards or commissions, the Board of Selectmen shall make an interim appointment for the unexpired portion of the term or until the next biennial town election, whichever shall be sooner, provided that when the persons vacating the office shall have been elected as a member of a political party, such vacancy shall be filled by the appointment of a member of the same political party. So therefore, the actions of the Board of Selectmen was contrary to that, since they used a person of a different political party. And the word shall used in legalese means that it's mandatory. It's not optional, it's not suggested. So I think that that is a violation. So I bring that open to the commission and ask how people would like to proceed, because I think we need to make a decision about what we want to do with this. Is there any suggestions?
Well, just one point of information. The Democratic Town Committee had supported my appointment into their
Yes.
vacancy.
Yes, I saw the meeting and I understand that, but I don't see in the town charter where it makes exceptions. So I don't think just because a political party said it's okay, doesn't change the charter. I don't think they have that authority. That's only my opinion,
yeah.
But that's why I'm raising the issue.
Sure.
And I would state that it's in the town charter for a reason. If it could be waived, I don't think it'd be necessary to have it in there in the first place.
I guess something similar would be that, for example, an unaffiliated ran on the Democratic ticket for selectman. And so what is he?
He wasn't appointed.
He was elected.
No, he was
though.
elected.
Right.
So is he regarded as a D? Is he regarded as a U? You know,
I
if
guess
he
someone would have
needs
to figure that out if they wanted to exercise that.
Yeah.
However, that's not the case before us. So I don't know if there's any suggestions or motions. I would think that we should defer this until it is resolved. Perhaps my opinion is that we should seek legal advice about this with the statutory support and precedent, if there is any. But reading the plain language of our town charter, I would say that the Board of Selectmen acted incorrectly in that appointment. And I would suggest we get it resolved as best we can now, because as we move forward, it has an impact on our decisions. So I don't know if you have a preference, Mr. Timmerman, of possibly waiting, or, you know, I will certainly respect whatever you want to do. I'm just bringing it up because I think it is a legitimate issue.
Why don't we let it stand until we get some clarity? Because I went through the process for taking an oath of office, and the town clerk had recorded it and all that.
Okay?
So it could always be reversed.
Right.
If the attorney finds that that didn't work out.
The only thing is that the decisions and votes can't be, can they? Or we would have to do them all over again.
Right.
We have 4 public hearings tonight. You'll be voting on those, I presume, so.
I don't know, absent an attorney here to.
Yeah. But I'm willing to respect what you want to do. I would just note that I would object to that approach, but I certainly defer to you, and if that's what you want to do, I'm
Unless you want to
more willing
raise
to
me
go
to,
along.
if you, you know, to cover our bases, raise to a voting member, because you'd be short one. You'd be
Well,
short a regular member.
we have an alternate whose turn it is to sit in this evening, but, I mean, again, I'm interested in the consensus. I'm not trying to make something happen that I don't have any particular outcome that I want other than that we follow the town charter.
Can we ask the town attorney about this?
Yeah, but I don't think we could get an
Town
answer
attorney isn't here.
immediately.
Well, I don't think, no, I understand that, but maybe that's something we need to clarify by asking
Yes,
the town attorney.
well, that's why I
what we need to
suggested
do.
it, and I'm sure that it's already happening. I wouldn't be
The
surprised.
inquiry is already into the town attorney.
Okay.
But unfortunately, being that it was after, it's just came to our attention.
But I'm willing to just proceed if you want, but I just wanted it noted.
Sure. The other thing to consider is that if I was in on discussions, deliberations for some of these, then there is precedent for raising me to for the vacancy to continue with the deliberations on things I've been here for the public hearings.
Yes, thank you. That's a good point too, but I'll say that, listening to what you're saying, let's just leave it as it is and we'll wait to get guidance, if you're okay with that.
Sure.
Because I don't want to take myself any action either way. And if everyone else is comfortable with that, we can proceed.
Good.
I will mention also that when the gentleman who was the D that was occupying that office resigned, in our bylaws, the town clerk is supposed to be copied and informed of it, but I was never informed, so it didn't start off with the transparency that we've all come to expect. But in any case, okay, I think we've resolved it. If everyone else is comfortable, we can move on with that. All right, thank you. At this point, then, I would ask all the members to please introduce themselves,
I'm
starting
sorry,
with my
could I
far
ask a
left.
question?
Yes.
So there'll be no voting tonight?
I don't know that we said that. We have several issues we're gonna be voting
Yeah.
on. We were gonna leave it for now, pending legal advice.
I understand. Mr. Timmerman is sitting as a regular member, as a Democrat.
Well, no, he's sitting as an unaffiliated.
Unaffiliated. Okay. Okay,
Did you get your question answered?
I think I did.
Okay. Thank you. So at this time, we'll ask the members to please introduce themselves, starting from my far left.
Anthony Papucci, board member.
Kurt Timmerman?
Daryl Pratt, regular member.
Gary Getz, chairman.
Sean Turner, regular member.
Mike Lucia, alternate.
Gwen Arment, alternate.
Thank you. And also we have Mr. Lally, ZEO, and land use director, Laura, whose name I forgot all of a sudden. I apologize. Borkowski. It's been a while. Thank you. The next item up on the agenda is number 2, enforcement, zoning enforcement officer's report. Mr. Lally.
Chairman,
You're welcome.
47 High Ridge Road, the trial date for tomorrow has been pushed back to March 6th now. The property owner has asked the judge for a continuance for some more time. So Judge Medina granted him. A new trial date now is scheduled for March 6th, 2024. 11 Cross Road, George Landa Aries residence. When I was going out to number 9 Cross Road, I observed number 11 has been doing astronomical amount of work on the property over there. Has 3 commercial vehicles on the property. He's doing some seamless gutter business. Also, there's numerous building violations, and he ended up clear cutting over an acre of wetlands. So I did send a notice of violation to the property owner to comply with the commercial vehicle parking. He's only allowed 1 commercial vehicle. He's got 3, and he's got a couple hoop houses, those carports. It's kind of leery if he were there, where he's got them right now, if they're in the wetlands or on the property, because it's a big lot. So I'm still waiting to get a response back from him on that. On the cease and desist list, 31 Greenwell Drive, I emailed the commission this past week information, and you all have, I did copies for everybody also. We can, I think, just go over this either now or afterwards, after the enforcement report.
If you want to wait till the end of your report, would that be okay?
Perfect, yeah, okay. 1 31 Rachel Farm Road, the Valentine residence. I still hadn't heard back. I sent her an email today asking for an update. So if I don't get a response by her by next meeting, I'll go to a citation on that property. They were doing filling there, and I don't know the amount of fill that was put in there. It could have been under 100 cubic yards, could be over. I'm still just trying to get an answer from them on that property. So, moving on to 9 Cross Road, the Sweeney property and his mother's property. I sent a cease and desist order out on the 17th from the complaint of the neighbors, the dumpsters on the property. I did receive a call from Mr. Sweeney tonight, late tonight. I didn't update the report, but he did find a location for his dumpsters, and he'll be moving them out of there, he indicated to me. He didn't give me a timetable. He does have a couple questions for the commission, and he's gonna be at the next meeting in February to ask those questions. But he indicated to me last night or today, that he did have a new location for the dumpsters, and they'll be out of there, so.
Okay.
Moving on to the citation list, 89 Wisconsin Road, again, there's no update on this one. I don't know, this is the same judge as the High Ridge, Judge Medina. He has not ruled on any damages for the town yet, so I don't know what the issue is with this one.
That's been going on for a while.
Yeah, he ruled in favor of the town, but he just is not awarding damages. I don't know what the issue is.
2021.
And then the 35 Hidden Brook Drive, there's still no update on that one yet. I had a meeting with the town attorney today, and he's gonna look into the issue. So, and that's it for now.
Thank you, Mr. Lally. Any of the commissioners have any questions for our zoning enforcement officer at this time?
Just to discuss 31 Green Knoll.
Okay, please.
Yes, I'm just surprised. I thought there was supposed to be a professional person taking the samples as opposed to the person who's the perpetrator. So are those valid?
I'm not a soil scientist, so I could not answer that question, and I wasn't present when those samples were taken.
Mm-hmm. So is this a valid assessment? Do we consider it valid?
I guess that's kind of up for the commission to determine.
Mhm.
When it was discussed that samples were going to be taken, I don't believe either Mr. Lally or myself knew that it was a self-service
Yes.
sampling,
Yep.
if you will. So we found out when we found out.
Uh-huh.
Is the best way. So I would defer to the commission on whether or not you find these samples adequate, or if you prefer a different approach.
Anyone else? Mr. Timmerman?
Thank you. I don't find them adequate because, there was not a independent third party who's an expert going in there and saying where they should be sampled or anything. And I'm surprised his attorney didn't, recommend, not doing it himself. I mean, how can we trust that if he's done what he's done already? I really don't, believe any of this just because of the way it was done. Even if Fran was there, as he said, he's not a certified soil scientist. We need someone who knows what the heck they're doing out there.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I agree with
Mr.
Kurt.
Pratt.
I agree with Kurt on that. And, we don't know where they got these samples. We weren't there, nobody was there, we don't have a professional doing it. Could have done it from the neighbor's yard, we wouldn't know.
Right.
So they're irrelevant.
Yeah, I agree too. I'm in full agreement that there's too many variables that are unknown, that, again, it's not a neutral observer doing this. Things could be altered, and again, I'm not saying that he's doing it in a malicious way, but facts are facts. You need the transparency of the tests that should have been called out and executed.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mrs.
Yes,
Arment?
I don't know how much this has been discussed, but for the new people, this has been going on for a very long time. And it was an egregious landfill, and it has affected the neighbors tremendously. And not only were these samples not taken by a professional, but there's been no land removal as far as I know, has there?
Not to my knowledge.
It's also an aquifer protection zone.
Yes. So this is really kind of a serious situation that's been going on for a very long time.
And if I may, unless someone else wanted to speak, I agree with all the comments. I'm kind of struck and almost appalled that the person who's received the citation for a violation is going to be the one conducting the investigation. It's kind of unprecedented in jurisprudence as far as I know, and in common sense. And also it seems to be conflated that somehow this soil testing, the removal of the material is contingent upon it. I think we should probably maybe go back and read the actual, there was an order for him to fix it that was sent out.
About a year ago, probably.
Yeah, there was, where is it? There was a notice to basically fix this, and that's been, we're coming up probably on a year, right? And it seems like nothing has been done, so I don't know. I don't feel like we're getting cooperation here. I personally, I don't know that we even set a timetable, but I thought there was some time that this had to be completed by, but maybe we should revisit that. Again, the order to restore was sent on November 23rd, 2022, so that's over a year ago. Do we have that file here now? Could we look at that? Possibly, because I don't know why we're talking about soil samples. That was supposed to be part of the removal. We just wanted to make sure that it wasn't contaminated when it was removed, but it doesn't hold up the fact that it still has to be removed in any case, even if it's all beautiful soil.
Right.
It still has to be taken out.
Right.
Oh, we know it's not beautiful soil
No.
from what has been
that
deposited
it
on
right
the
on top?
neighbors.
Yeah, no,
Yard.
that's real stuff.
So can you just,
Michelle's order.
so I'll have your name on it. That's the hearing. Yeah. This may be it.
That's his appeal.
This might be it, right? This is the appearance before a hearing officer, so maybe not. Can you tell me which one it is? Because I'm not sure. This is the citation. I don't know if that's
I think she sent the
the
copy.
order
of
to
it.
restore.
I have a question.
Please, Mr.
Is
Turner.
the issue the soil being removed or the samples? Because I think the two issues are kind of confusing me a little bit. Are we talking about where the samples were taken out, or?
Well, I can try to
Let's
answer that
remove
if you
it.
want.
Yeah,
Well,
please.
basically, this act occurred, a person basically put a whole bunch of fill on
Right,
their property without obtaining the proper permits.
Mhm.
We got complaints, an investigation took place, and there was a lot of fill there. And there were things like metal sticking out of the soil and things of
Okay.
that nature. And after the investigation and our discussion many times, and the person, let's say the alleged perpetrator, came in and spoke with us, and others who had filed complaints about it, neighbors and such, we determined that we wanted him to fix it, to remove everything, because he didn't have the permits. And as a part of that, since there was concern about the nature of the soil and whether it was contaminated, we also made it a stipulation that he had to have it tested to assure us that the aquifer protection zone wasn't contaminated or would not be contaminated. But it wasn't that we would wait for him to get around to testing the soil before he had to do the remediation. He was supposed to do that ASAP. Thank you. Would you like for me to read it, Fran, or could you read it?
Would you like me to read it? Yeah.
If you don't mind. A lot of big words in there for me.
This is dated November 23rd, 2022. Dear Mr. and Mrs. McGovern, at its regular meeting of the November 10th, 2022, Brookfield Zoning Commission voted unanimously to compel you to remove fill material of unknown origin that you deposited on your land, 31 Greenwald Drive, without the required permission to restore the land to its former condition. The earthwork that will be required under this order is regulated by section 6.5 earthwork and grading and section 6.6 soil erosion and sediment control. You must submit an application for excavation permit per section 8-13, which shall be accompanied by the detailed plan signed and sealed by an appropriate professional for review by the commission and its designee that comply with the appendix 1 of these regulations. Section 8.13B3. If you fail to comply promptly with this order, the commission may direct the zoning enforcement officer to issue a citation and impose a fine up to $150 per day. The violation continues, provided by Town Ordinance 84-4. Citation and fines for violation of zoning regulations. Please direct any questions to Francis Holly, zoning officer, or to me. Sincerely, Rochelle Hodza, Deputy Zoning Enforcement Officer, Land Use Department.
Thank you, Mr. Lally. Does any commissioners have anything to say in
Yes.
response?
Sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Arment.
On top of that, didn't, we do have the $150 a day, don't we?
We do.
Now we do.
We now do since what, November? I think November 1st of last year?
Oh, I can't remember when it was.
It was
I know
around there.
It was.
November
approved
1st,
by the
November
Board of
15th.
Selectmen, and then it has to be published, and then they have a process for an effective date and appeals, so I don't know the date off the top of my head.
I see. So we definitely have that,
We do have,
and has it been implemented?
it can't be.
It
You
can't
would have
be.
to start the process again
All
as a
over
notice of
again.
violation.
Yeah.
They already paid their citation, they went through the citation hearing process, so the proper way to do that is you'd have to start again with another notice
Notice
of
of
violation,
violation. Yep.
issue a citation, and then move forward. But you now have the option to be able to do that instead of the flat fee that was originally, that was the change in the ordinances that I want to implement.
Fran, in the letter that you read, it calls out professional testing.
Professional testing, correct, yes.
So that's also a violation. They didn't do that, they did it themselves.
So he failed in the spirit and the letter of
Correct.
that directive, which would indicate poor faith, in my humble opinion.
Correct. That's why I'm calling that out, because,
Yeah.
again, the letter was very clear.
And I believe he, if I'm correct, had his hearing after that letter with
Yes.
the hearing officer, with the land use director at that time, Rochelle Hodza. She was involved in this more than I was, because the aquifer protection technically, according to the regulations, falls on the wetlands enforcement officer, not the zoning enforcement officer. So it's kind of convoluted a little bit right there.
And if I may, unless anyone else has something, he was also directed to submit a plan. Did we ever get a detailed plan of how he's gonna remediate that?
We did get one plan.
I don't know how detailed it was, it was the plan that was submitted, I believe, over the summer,
Yeah,
very,
there was.
Oh, okay.
Commission.
I don't recall that, but it said it was supposed to be done promptly, and I believe that that went out 15 months ago, right? So a year and a quarter, I wouldn't consider that promptly.
No. So if the commission would like, I'll start it up again.
I mean, honestly, if I may, and I don't want to express my opinion at the outset, but I feel that we've been more than fair, more than patient, and I'm thinking of the aquifer protection zone, and if there is contaminants leaching into that, all this time, it probably has already happened. It's really not good. I feel that we have a duty that we have to act expeditiously, and we've been, I think, very fair, perhaps too slow to act, and I would suggest that we either initiate the fines or go into legal action, because it seems to me, and other people can weigh in, but it looks to me like this is bad faith. I don't see a person seriously trying to get this work done, because it frankly should have been finished a long time ago. But that's just my take.
I agree, I think we should restart the citation.
Yeah. The other question that I have is, since, Fran, you called out, this also ties in because of the aquifer, where does wetlands fall into this as well? Because now they've got to have stake in this, or maybe
they
not.
actually don't. Very interestingly enough, the protection regulations are tied with the zoning regulations and not with the wetlands regulations.
Okay, that's fine, and that's fine. I just,
It's a strange
It is, yeah.
thing.
I just want to make sure that they're both wetlands and zoning are,
But I think
In
in
lockstep.
fairness, if I don't misremember, our land use department did reach out to the Department of Energy and, or the DEEP, as we like to call them, and basically got a kind of boilerplate response without any action taken on their
That is
part.
correct. I did, send a notification to the Department of Environmental Management, DEEP, as I like to call them. So much easier to say. And I did not, I did ultimately get that could be considered clean fill. You can have some construction debris, it depends on what it is. A back and forth. I do not believe anyone ever went out there. It did take a while to even get that response. So I don't expect the state to do any action whatsoever on this, just to be clear. The other issue to it is to remove the soil, they would require an excavation permit. So that has also not happened. It hasn't been removed and no permit has been applied for.
How does that get forced?
Fines?
I would start
Start all over again.
with sending the notice of violation again, then if you fail to do this in a timely fashion, you'll have to wait a certain amount of time. And then currently your zoning regulations do require the commission to instruct your zoning enforcement officer to reinstate citations or to issue a notice of citation.
If I may, I would just suggest whatever is the most expeditious and the shortest time frame for him to comply that is fair and reasonable, we should do, because I believe this started in August of '22. So we're like, you know, what, in like 7 months, it's gonna be 2 years. So, I mean, this is getting a bit absurd. And then to perform the soil sample yourself, I find that almost insulting. I mean, give me a break, you know? It seems that he doesn't take any of this seriously, so.
Well,
But-
he hasn't been reprimanded very
Right.
strongly.
So would someone like to make a motion that we reinstate a citation with the fines
Yeah, I
at
make
this
a
point?
motion to reinstate the citations and fines.
Mr. Papucci has made a motion that we reinstate the fine. We'll just have a discussion when we get a second. Do we have a second to
Oh,
that?
point of order. Do we need to do a notice of violation first? Oh, we need to go through
Oh,
the
okay.
steps.
Thank you. But do we have a second to the motion before we shoot it down? To
I'll
follow
just
it?
rescind it.
Okay, and that's how the discussion is that, okay, we have to go that other step first, but, so we'll reissue a notice of violation, and,
Sorry, Mr.
that's okay.
And you could, to proceed up to and including the citation process, so that way he's not going to be waiting, or who's ever gonna issue the citation for the next meeting. So, issue a notice of violation, and after 30 days, maybe issue a citation.
And so what does he have to do within 30 days?
Give us a plan, right?
That's up to how it
I would
wants
say
to be worded.
begin at this point, and also provide us with a detailed plan. And maybe also
And
testing by a professional.
Third-party testing process.
Third-party testing, and perhaps submit an application for an excavation permit.
Yeah.
Right.
Did you get that? You're gonna make that?
So, we have a motion, or could someone please make a motion that we issue a notice of violation with the other corollary items that have been mentioned, and I think they're in the record?
I'll make a motion that we issue a notice of violation up to and including the citation when the time limit is appropriate, and also require an excavation permit to remove, and professional testing includes the sampling by a professional, a third party, and what was the, I think that was it, right?
Detailed plan.
And a detailed plan of remediation.
Within 30 days, is
Within.
that fair? Because I don't think it has any teeth if we don't give
I
them
think so.
a
I think
time.
30
Within
days.
30 days.
So is that clear? So we have that motion by Mr. Timmerman. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Mr. Papucci beat you on that one? No. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you. Thank you again, Mr. Lally. Next item up, number 4, minutes of the previous meeting, which was January 11th, 2024. Is there any discussion or comments from the commissioners? I hear none. This time the chair is prepared to entertain a motion to accept the minutes then.
I make a motion to accept the minutes for January 11.
Mr.
second.
Papu- Okay, Mr. Papucci's made a motion to accept the minutes from January 11, 2024. Excuse me, Mr. Timmerman has seconded it. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Any abstentions? The minutes are accepted as submitted. Thank you. Number 5, continued public hearings. Item A, 120 Obtuse Hill, Z-23-62. Carl Squitieri for Acacia Capuano. Special permit with design review for 700 square foot accessory apartment for section 3.16. Public hearing was set at October 26, 2023 meeting. And I believe that now public hearing has been closed and we are at the deliberation stage. So with that, is there anyone that'd like to comment at this time? Any commissioners, Mr. Timmerman?
Sure. As far as the building goes, I think it's clear that, that garage that was put there and allowed through a variance, and it's there and it's not gonna disappear, is not a duplex. One side is gonna be an apartment or a proposed apartment, the other side is just open area. And we had gotten the opinion from the attorney that the existing carriage house, it was pre-zoning, and it has 2 residences on that one lot. That doesn't have any bearing on this, so they're still allowed an accessory dwelling unit. And we had gotten that, we heard information and public input from all the sides, but having a signed sworn affidavit, where under oath, I think carries more weight than, and the map that supports from it was an old map.
I want to say 78.
Yeah, from a
There was
old.
something with there, 74.
Yeah, from an old time, from 1965 here.
Oh, that's.
It's
oh.
even older, showing, the TV tower attached to this building, carries more weight than the other information I heard. That's my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Any other commissioners have anything to comment on?
Yeah,
Ms. Sarment?
I'm looking at this picture of what it looked like before, and then what it looks like now.
Hmm.
So, it looks like another house was built there. And somebody said there's also a business, which it's not zoned for, so I'm kinda concerned for the town, well, the neighbors and the town, that you've got a house plus a house. Do we have multiple family dwelling is allowed in this area? Cause that's what it looks like to me.
Well, that garage is not going away. That garage is allowed by variance. That's, I don't know, it was done some time ago.
The other
Back in
picture.
What garage?
No, the other picture, if you flip back to the other picture, that garage, that's the carriage house. That is a separate building.
No, that's the
Oh,
garage.
that's the
That's the
same
garage?
building.
That's the garage that was expanded,
Okay.
That's a 3-bay garage. Now there's a 5-bay
yes.
with a 2-story and, well, two-story plus the dormers, a 3rd story, or a half story.
So that's,
yeah. That just concerns me, and the neighbors are concerned about this too.
well, we can't do anything about it because the ZBA allowed that. The ZBA allowed that garage to be expanded, and now it's set. There's nothing we can do about that. And the time limit ran out for anybody to appeal that decision by the ZBA because it's over a year ago. And so.
And the ZBA sanctioned this design.
Yeah.
Was it built, because, in our community,
Well, if you
something
look,
is designed and then not built according to the design.
if you look at the ZBA minutes and the plans that were offered, there was discussion about the 2 floors, 2 stories, and there was shown a plot plan about the expansion to the right, away from the road, of the extra 2 bays. And that's what was shown at the ZBA. Now, the ZBA, if they should have perhaps maybe asked for more information, I don't know, but that's all that was presented there, and that's what they decided on. That was the information they decided on, and this is how it came out.
So this is 2.5 stories, basically,
Well, it's 2 stories.
It's
The
2
dormers,
stories.
you know,
with the
everybody. I
dormers.
mean, that's not a dormer, that's just a gable end with a window in it. There's only 2 stories in that garage.
I've been in the
You have, it's 2. Okay, so is this an attic then?
There was nothing there when I was there. It's all dead space. This side over here is all vacant. The only place that there's an apartment. This is all storage. He has all ATV equipment and stuff in here. There is no business there. I checked with the assessor, and the business was forfeited back in 2001 under a previous owner, not the current owner.
I guess my point is, there was nothing we can do about the building. The building's there. And that's not what, our charge is not to do anything about the building. Our charge, and what's in front of us now, is allowing an apartment in 1/2 of that building that exists there now.
But there is an apartment.
No, they're not yet. That's what they want to do. It's not approved. That's what we're doing, or not. And that's what he wants to do.
The attorney, according to the attorney, the carriage house was not considered an apartment because it was zoning, correct?
Yes.
Zoning regulations,
Yes,
okay.
so even though there is actually another building, a carriage house that people live in, since it was pre-zoning, it was a long time ago, and it's grandfathered in, it has no bearing on this application. In other words, they are still allowed an accessory dwelling unit.
1 ATV.
So there will be 3 dwellings.
Yes, exactly. It's, or 2.5, say.
Well,
Apartment plus 2
2,
single-family homes on that property, yes.
and what's it zoned for?
It's a single-family residence, and you're allowed to have an accessory apartment and single-family residence. But we are, according to the attorney, we're to ignore that other full resident, full residence, because it was pre-zoning and it was grandfathered in. That's the attorney's opinion. And there's a couple instances like that around town, where in the old farming communities, you know, they had the parents and then the kids had a house on the same property. They built it all pre-zoning, so that's how it ended up. And we had that question too. We wondered, does that other house on the property have a bearing on what we're deciding? Does it not allow an ADU, you know, this accessory apartment? And the answer from the attorney was, no, it has no bearing on it.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from commissioners?
One comment from a neighbor was that the entrance is close to the road, I believe, as I recall, and
That's correct.
was fearful for the person who lived there.
It's already a garage, though. There's already gonna be cars pulling in and out.
Well, thank you.
Comment.
Well, not hearing any other discussion, I guess at this time the chair is prepared to entertain a motion relative to this application. Is there one forthcoming?
Make a motion to approve 120 Obtuse Hill, application Z-23-62, special permit with design review for a 700 square foot accessory apartment per section 3.16.
Thank you, Mr. Timmerman. Do we have a second to Mr. Timmerman's motion?
I'll second it.
Mr. Pratt has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll call the question. All those in favor of the application Z-23-62, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by nay? Nay. The ayes have it. The application is approved. Thank you. Next, item B, 11 Wiskaner Road Z-22-1. Connie Summerlin, special permit with design review for a 550 square foot accessory apartment per section 3.16. The public hearing originally set for December 14th meeting. I believe that this was continued from our last meeting due to the absence of the applicant. Is the applicant here at this time? Okay, would you please, actually, I think we already opened the public
We
hearing.
opened it, yeah.
But the applicant, of course, wasn't here, so would you like to stand up and make a presentation relative to your application at this time? At the podium, please.
Oh,
Please come to the podium and state your name and address and then proceed.
Connie Sue Summerlin, 11 Wiskaner Road, Brookfield, Connecticut. I'm unprepared for a presentation, but I have an application before you for an accessory apartment, approximately 550 square feet. Could be a little bit larger than that. I understand that the max is 800 square feet. What else would you like from me?
Just anything you think that's relevant to your application that will help the commission make a decision.
The building itself, the garage itself, was built 10 years ago. I don't know if that's important to you. It was approved by the town. The CO it's all according to building code is what I'm getting at. The accessory apartment will also be according to building code in every respect. Electric, plumbing, contractor. So, plans are up in the air as far as tenants at this time. My daughter is in the area. She's a good candidate for living there. But as I said, it's been on my mind as a possibility to pursue for a number of years. But I feel that it's time to move forward if I'm granted approval by the commission to do so.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Timmerman?
This is, the garage is behind the main house?
That's correct.
Beyond, it's a separate detached.
It's a two-bay garage. A little larger than a two-bay garage, has a separate door on the first floor. It's about 30 feet, 30 square feet, or 30 feet in, from right to left, and about, I think, 26 in depth.
Okay.
If I may, at this time, although the public hearing was already opened, we typically do read something just to make sure that we have the same process. So if you don't mind, please indulge me, and I will do that. This is a continued public hearing, and these public hearings have been opened already for application Z-22-1, and it was opened on January 11th, 2024, and remains open to continue to accept any data bearing on this application. The public notice and rules still apply from the previous meeting. Those general rules being that after accepting any data, I will ask for questions of clarification, followed by comments from those in favor, and finally comments from those in opposition. So, it sounds like you've finished your presentation at this time, or you feel comfortable doing that. Thank you. At this time, then, I would truncatedly ask the commissioners to please introduce themselves again at this middle point.
Anthony Papucci, board member.
Kurt Timmerman, board member.
Daryl Pratt, regular member.
Here he gets chairman.
Sean Turner, regular member.
Mike Busa, alternate.
Gwen Arment, alternate.
Thank you. And at this time, we will ask if there's any members of the public who have any questions of clarification regarding the application. Hearing none, we will ask if there's anyone who would like to speak in favor of the application present. No one has come forward. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in opposition to the application? Likewise, no one has come forward. Do the commissioners have any other questions or comments relative to this application?
it looks like, you know, of the requirements, it looks like they fulfilled them, you know, for 316 accessory apartments, the standards and everything. It's got a site plan, you know, plans how to do it, the size is right. Yet, well, they don't actually have anybody there, but when they do have someone, then they have to get that notary, the affidavit done to make sure they meet the requirements of age or family members.
Would there be any septic or part of the CO process that needs to be validated?
Not from us.
Okay.
Of course, if they got a CO, they would have to go through the sanitation and building department and everything.
That's fine,
anyway.
just making sure.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, then, at this time, the chair is happy to entertain a motion relative to the application.
I'll make a motion to approve 11 Wiskinair Road.
Close the public hearing.
Oh, sorry. I make a motion to close the public hearing for application 11 Wiskinair Road Z-22-1, special permit with design review for a 550 square foot accessory apartment per section 3.16.
Thank you, Mr. Timmerman. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Mr. Papucci has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion relative to the motion to close the public hearing? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Are there any abstentions? There are none. The public hearing has been closed. This time, the chair will entertain a motion relative to the application itself.
I'll make an application to approve 11 Wiskinair, I'll make a motion to approve 11 Wiskinair Road, application Z-22-1, special permit with design review for a 550 square foot accessory apartment per section 3.16.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Mr. Papucci has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve the application, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Are there any abstentions? There are none. The motion carries. The application's approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item up is C, 20 Station Road Z-23-63, Alan Rothman, 10 Julia Lane, Suite 103, Cold Spring, New York. Special permit with design review for a 60-unit multifamily building per section 3.14. Public hearing was originally set December 14th, 2023 meeting. And again, I will just read our little zoning commission script relative to a continued public hearing. This is a continued public hearing for 20 Station Road, application Z-23-63, which was opened on January 11th, 2024, and remains open to continue to accept any data bearing on this application. The public notice and rules still apply from the previous meeting. Those general rules being that after accepting any data, I will ask for questions of clarification, followed by comments from those in favor, and finally comments from those in opposition. Is the applicant here?
Yes.
Hi.
Hello.
And you've already presented at the previous meeting?
Correct.
So at this point, I guess we're still asking questions. Is there any further questions of the applicant?
The main
Mr.
reason I kept it open, because there was one one member of the public who was time limited to 5 minutes, and he had more to say, so I said, you can send your comments in, and I kept the
Okay.
public hearing open for that, but I do not believe, Fran, did we get anything more on this application?
No.
Okay, so that's all I was waiting for.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr. Timmerman.
Can we still ask questions to them?
Yeah, sure.
We still can?
Sure.
Okay, cool.
Still open.
Well, if I may, Mr. Chair?
Yes, certainly, Mr. Pratt, please.
Gentlemen, I have a question. One of the big concerns I have is this site is polluted, it's got an issue, right?
Yes.
What if you dig down and it's a lot more problem than you can handle?
Okay, well, it's not that it can handle, it could go over the $1.2 million
That's what I'm saying,
grant.
it's out of your-
So it's the
right.
developer's responsibility to put in the extra money.
Can you? What if it's another million, another $2 million? Can you, that's okay?
Yeah, It's not okay,
Well, I'm just
but,
saying. Well, we're concerned.
but,
You know,
but there's a process when it goes over.
Yeah.
And the process is that we then apply to the state for more money. And they may grant, they may not, and then we're on the hook if it does go over that.
Okay, because my follow-up question to that is, say it puts you out of business, what does Brookfield get stuck with, a big hole?
Okay, so this is not one of our bigger projects.
Why?
We did Brookfield Village.
No, it's
Those
irrelevant.
are all our
That's all
projects.
good,
Yes.
Listen, I'm in business too, and
Yes.
stuff happens. every-
So chances are then the state would, I don't know the answer to that. I think the state would step in. This is an important project to the state of Connecticut because this pollutant's so bad, they're worried that it's already migrating off the property.
Yeah, well-
And so it's a severe problem that's been a problem for 50 years.
No, but it is a problem. Yeah, and
Yes.
again, if we get stuck with a big hole in town, it's not gonna be very pretty either. So I'm just trying to see if there's a backup plan whatsoever. I mean, you're saying maybe the state will step in, but we
So,
don't know that.
just so you know, it's the town's responsibility to actually clean it up. And they're getting the grant money. It's not our responsibility. We're basically the support and the developer to put the development on the project.
But you're still
So-
spearheading the cleanup though, correct?
No, Greg Domowski is. The
We're in
town of
charge.
Brookfield is.
So it's town of Brookfield
Yes.
can handle that.
And Greg did his presentation last
Yeah,
week.
no, I watched
Yes,
it.
yes.
I read it, yeah.
So,
concerned.
so that's more of a question for the town than for us.
Okay. Let's see. This might be a town problem too, but, since it's a pollutant, what if the tenants that you're gonna build and it's gonna be for residential, because we found out it can't be for commercial and it can't be a parking lot, you said, so what happens if these tenants get sick?
So, first of all, we can't build anything until all these, a lot of that money, 1.2 million, is all this evaluation of the site. And we can't build anything until it is cleaned. If there's a possibility we'll have underneath the building, a system to bring air through, but that's about it. That's about $30,000.
And that's all you got, okay. Let's see, I think that's enough for me. Oh, yeah, there was one other thing, I'm sorry. The person that was opposed to your plan said there's not enough parking?
He did say that, but we're giving the requirement for 60 units is 90 parking spaces, and we're doing 102 parking spaces.
Okay, so you got it covered.
Yes.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.
Any other questions? Any other comments from the commissioners?
How
Yes?
large is this lot?
It's 2.3 acres. 2.32 acres, or roughly between 2.2 and 2.32 acres.
And how many units are allowed on an acre?
We have a ZBA zoning variance for density, so it's more than typically allowed.
In last week, or last meeting, that was one of the questions that we asked, and they had said that ZBA had given them for the variances, that they had listed out what they were, density. the
We have four zoning
Max
variances.
footprint.
Partial force floor and no commercial on the first floor.
Correct.
Right. Any other questions?
Looks like there are none at this time. Thank you. At this time, I guess, if there are no other questions or comments, Chair is prepared to entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing for 20 Station Road, application Z-23-63. Special permit with design review for a 60-unit multifamily building per section 3.14.
Mr. Timmerman's made a motion. Do we have a second to the motion?
Second.
Mr. Turner has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion about the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of closing the public hearing for the above referenced Z-23-63, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed by nay. Are there any abstentions? The motion to close the public hearing passes. Now the chair is prepared to entertain a motion to act on the application at this time.
I make a motion to approve 20 Station Road, application Z-23-63, special permit with design review for 60-unit multifamily building per section 3.14.
We have a second to the motion from
I'll
Mr.
second
Timmerman?
again.
Mr. Turner has seconded the motion on the application. Is there any discussion? Great.
I think this, you know, to get rid of that pollution, and thank you for your questions, Terrell.
Yeah, well, thank
Um,
you, Kurt.
That was good to, and we had some, you know, we had questions ourselves about
No, I
how
know.
the process was even
Right,
gonna
right.
happen, so.
And they also, the law didn't come out, but they also stated 5 years monitoring after the property is done, because, again, the leaching out is definitely a concern.
Well, that's my biggest concern, because I like the idea that we're cleaning up a mess,
Yep.
but it's also, now we're getting 60 more units in an already really overbuilt area. But this is what I hear from all my people that I talk with in town. Enough building, enough, you know, so how much more do we do? I would hope there would be a different alternative, but maybe there isn't, but, enough.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion?
I'd
Ms.
just like
Sarment?
to second what Mr. Pratt
Me.
said.
Oh, Darryl,
That's
sorry.
what I keep hearing, we're just overbuilding, we're giving variances, we're changing zonings, and we're just changing the town completely. And that, this seems like a lot of units on a smaller property. Plus, all the parking spaces. This is what I'm hearing from everybody, we're overbuilding.
Yeah, actually, I hear the other way. People think we need apartments because
I've
people
never heard
can't
that.
find apartments. Well, I know you haven't, and I've heard the opposite, so, you know, there's two sides to
But,
the
Kurt, we
argument.
haven't finished building all the stuff that's been already approved. We've got hundreds of units that are still
No,
gonna be.
it's not hundreds.
Well, 100 behind Del Primo
Yes.
building, right? Then you got like the ones that they're still building up here. You know.
Isn't
No, there's
there-
nothing going.
There's
on.
100
No, no,
going
I'm
on
talking-
Laurel Hill,
I'm
isn't there?
talking- Yeah, and then we got the
100
ones that, right on Federal Road, they're already working
Yeah.
on. And then you guys approved the other one behind that. Well,
Oh,
they
yes,
approved.
there's approvals.
So there's-
Approvals is not the same as
But
being built.
They're gonna, at some point, then we got 70 condos that we
Yeah.
approved, you know, so it's got a lot of stuff's going on in Brookfield. It hasn't happened yet, so.
And
yeah,
sometimes
I'm
it
concerned.
doesn't. And
It might
when-
not, but-
If they get to the point where, you know, the market softens and people find places to live, then the banks and the developers will say, not yet, this is not the time.
But Kurt, but how much?
Until
how
they
many
have a
people do it?
shovel in the ground, they're
No,
not building them.
I get it, but once it's done, and then now, what if we have this downturn, we have all these empty apartment buildings? What's gonna go in there?
Well, right now, there's gonna be people moving in, because
So they
there's a
say.
demand for it.
So they say,
I do have a question.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, you can't talk during that.
I can't?
No.
Okay.
So I hear from the other side,
well, the people that put me in here were begging me to please do something and stop what's happening,
Mhm.
so,
Yes.
right? I mean, this
Yes.
is what we get when we stand in front of the voting populace, so, yeah, that's
I
just how I
understand.
feel.
Look, it's a double-edged sword, but I've been in Brookfield now going on 30 years. And I used to live where Barnbeck went in. And I went through that whole debacle in '08 when they had a plan and then the property sat idle for 10-plus years until Barnbeck finally went in. So, yeah, there is that ebb and flow. But on that same token, without the growth, whether it's small or not, and planning, that becomes the problem. And since in any political arena and economic arena, you will have your ebbs and flows of when things are gonna happen.
Yeah.
And right now, it's hot, it will definitely cool off, and that will be another problem. But keeping it under control and having that balance is critical to the success of Brookfield. And that's what's made Brookfield stand out the way it is.
Yeah, stands out.
Anyone else? Any comments or discussion relative to the motion Mr. Timmerman made? Hearing no other discussion, all those in favor of the motion to approve the application, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed by nay?
Hey,
Nay. Those, any abstentions? Motion carries 3-2. Thank you. Application's approved. Next up, item D, 132 Federal Road Z-23-67. Permit Advisors LLC, 8370 Wilshire Boulevard, Beverly Hills, California, for Conweb Manufacturing Corp., 132 Federal Road, Brookfield. Thank you. Special permit with design review for 4,228 square foot medical office per section 4.2A7B. Public hearing was originally set December 14th, 2023 meeting. Is the applicant here?
They are not here, Mr. Chairman. I did receive an email from the applicant providing me additional information that was asked for at the last meeting on the parking. There was confusion on the, what was on the original application and what they were actually required to have. And the email basically explains their calculation. I believe they were including all the parking spaces in the front of the building. Realizing they had to break it down. Everyone has a copy of that tonight. I provided that to everybody.
I believe I have it. Thank you, Mr. Lally, but doesn't the applicant need to be present?
They do need to be present here, Mr. Chairman. So if the commission would like, they can continue to the next meeting, which I believe is February 8th.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it seems like maybe we would like the opportunity to maybe ask a couple questions.
Sure, absolutely.
If that's the consensus of the group, the chair's happy to entertain a motion to continue this item, 132 Federal Road Z-23-67, till our February 8th next regular zoning commission meeting.
Sure, I make a motion to continue 132 Federal Road, Z-23-67. Special permit with design review for 4,228 square foot medical office per section 4.2A7.B.
Second?
Thank you. Mr. Timmerman made the motion, Mr. Pratt seconded it. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, then all those in favor of the continuing motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, those opposed, nay. Are there any abstentions? The motion to continue this matter till February 8th passes. Thank you. And if I may, I'd just like to explain to the lady, you had a question, but see what happens once we close the public hearing? That's why we ask if there's anything else before that. So, I'm sorry. Thank you. And number 6 is for public hearings. There are none. Number 7, old business, likewise. Number 8, new business. Item A, 291 Federal Road, Z-18-118, Brookfield Senior Living. Final bond release, $8,600. I believe Mr. Lally would like to speak to that.
I would, yes. There was, when the 291, which is the assisted living, was approved back in the day, there was 2 bonds submitted for that project. One is for the plantings and the E&S control, erosion sediment control, and the second bond was given for a sidewalk, concrete sidewalk that was to be installed along the front of the property. Now that the DOT has finished the work on Federal Road from 202, the applicant's gonna move forward with the sidewalk, so there's a separate bond. The bond that you're releasing tonight is just for the erosion and sediment control and the plantings, which are thriving fine. And the other bond for the sidewalk is still being retained in the office, so.
Is that about $16,000?
It is, yes.
Right,
Is
thank
the
you.
Brookfield Senior Living the Linden?
The Linden, yes.
Okay.
Do you have a recommendation, Mr. Lally? Relative to the release of the bond?
Commission would make a motion to make recommendation to the Board of Selectmen to release the 8,000.
600. Thank you, Mr. Lally. Do we have a motion relative to that?
I make a motion for 291 Federal Road, Z-18-118, to go to the Board of Selectmen to release the final bond of $8,600.
Thank you. Do we have a second to the motion?
Second.
Mr. Pratt? So Mr. Papucci's made the motion to release the bond. Mr. Pratt has seconded it. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Are there any abstentions? The motion to release the bond Passes. Thank you, Mr. Lawley. Next up, 9 tabled items. First, item A, 2024 officer nominations. So at this time, the chair is prepared to entertain nominations, starting with the chair, then the vice chair, and lastly, the secretary. Does anyone have any nominations to make?
I'll make a.
Mr. Pratt?
I'll make one. I nominate Gary Getz, chairman.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second to the nomination?
I have a question.
Okay, we
based-
have to have a second to a motion normally, right, before we discuss it?
Okay, that's fine.
But if we don't have one, then there's nothing to discuss, so. So we have a motion to nominate Gary Getz as the chair. It appears that there's no second, so we don't have a motion to nominate anyone for chair. Is there something I'm missing here?
I have a question.
Okay, I guess
With-
we'll allow it.
Okay, I appreciate that. With the limbo
That's
that
where I
Kurt
was
is in
going with
right
this.
now, can we postpone these, or do we have to have these nominations for February?
Well, I believe that our bylaws say that it has to be before the first week in February, so if our next meeting's on the 8th, we can't unless we have a special meeting before then.
Mr. Chair, we did, if I may, we did receive a response back from the town attorney
Okay,
pertaining to this very matter. It was, we looked in, and this is from Attorney Tom Beecher, we looked at this, and the Democratic Town Committee endorsed Kurt, and in essence waived this provision. My question to him was whether or not, just pretty much what was broached. I sent the section of the charter that was in question over to the town attorney as well, and said, we just want confirmation or denial on whether or not this appointment was valid from the town attorney. That's the response that we did as townspeople received back. It just came in.
so he just stated what we already knew.
No, he stated that it's okay.
That since that by appointing,
Well, where's the reference to the statute? So it's just his gut opinion? He doesn't reference any law or any precedent?
that is correct, but this was the last minute, this was the first.
Yeah, I understand.
Looking for a response quickly. This is what I got at,
But the rationale he's providing is the one that was already given, saying that it was deemed okay by the town committee, but the town charter doesn't allow that. It's not in the town charter, so.
I have a question on that.
Okay,
If Mr. Timmerman quits, how is the new person appointed? Is it a Democrat, a Republican, or an unaffiliated?
you mean if this were to stand and then he vacates the office? I don't know. I mean, it's a valid question, but I don't know that it, again, is,
I think it would be
For
a
us to
Democrat,
consider now.
because
Right.
the original election was for a Democrat, and for the Democrats to fill.
which I think, you know, hypotheticals are good for a discussion, but the issue that I think we should only consider is the one that's actually before us, but, and I do appreciate that, but it's not really what I would call appropriate, just a comment by the by. I was expecting something. I'm no lawyer, but in legal discourse, when you argue a case, you're supposed to point to the law and statutes and precedent, not, I got your email and it's okay because they said it was okay. I mean, that's kind of reiteration of what the validation was used in the first place.
so we can certainly ask for a follow-up. I just wanted to make sure that it was known that I did receive
Okay.
a response, and this was the response.
But thank you for doing that so promptly.
So as it stands right now, as we're sitting here, Mr. Timmerman is a regular member of the commission, correct?
Well, not in my opinion.
Well, doesn't that create a conundrum?
Well, it's a big word for me. I don't know, but
Well,
yeah, it is an issue though.
it is an
Yeah,
issue,
yeah.
right? Because now, if I wanted to nominate Mr. Timmerman, I'm not quite sure if I can,
Correct.
based on the discussion that I'm hearing right now.
True. That's why it is an important issue, yes.
Right. And that's the reason why I was gonna ask, could we hold it off? Because I'm with Mr. Turner on this.
Yeah, and I understand that, and I don't presume to be an expert, but I just read some of these things, and I think I might have somebody must have the bylaws. But I think the bylaws say that it has to be done before, starting in the first week in January, but before the first week in February, so if we wait to the 8th, that would be past that due date.
So based on what
If I may, election of officers, section 1, at a meeting to be held anytime between the first Monday in December and the first Monday in February. So if the first Monday is before the 8th, we could be okay.
First Monday, February the 5th.
So it would be too late, unless we have a special meeting.
Yeah, the first February is, or first Monday is the 5th of
Right.
February, which would be before the 8th meeting.
And again, that's not me, that's what our bylaws say.
So your question, you're asking if the attorney can give us more rather than just his opinion. You want something cited.
What's a definitive answer?
Second?
Yeah.
I mean, he needs a definitive answer, because again,
Right.
if all of a sudden they say, oh, yeah, well, Kirk can't be either, any position other than an alternate, then everything that we approved can be shot back at us. So, it'd be awful.
Well, and again, at the risk of being redundant, and I don't want to seem obtuse or difficult, but when you ask a lawyer for their legal advice, and they just repeat the rationale that was already given, that's not really a legal analysis. That's just saying it's okay because they said it was okay, and that's what the issue is. It doesn't say in the town charter that there's any exceptions, so I would respectfully disagree, but I would just ask if the attorney could provide a legal answer, not what he provided, which I would, with all due respect, say it wasn't a legal answer. There were no laws cited, there was no precedent. So why is it okay? I don't think that that is valid, but that's just my
When
opinion.
did you say you sent out the email to him?
Tonight, it was at approximately, I'm sorry, I would have to look at this.
No, no,
For
just-
an exact time, it was a little bit after 6:30, I want to say.
And he responded, do you think the attorney will be able to respond, let's say by, I don't know, the end of next week, that we could do a special meeting to resolve this?
I would believe so, but the attorney so far has been very,
Or maybe even earlier?
maybe even earlier. I would be happy to forward any response that you receive. If you were seeking for more information, you could absolutely set a special meeting. Yeah, do that.
I'm okay with doing a special meeting until this is
Yeah.
resolved, because I think that we have to have this resolved in order to move ahead.
Yes.
Agreed.
Well, we can still entertain a motion for other offices too, but I'm listening to what the members are saying, and perhaps a proposal would be, today being the 25th, we could tentatively schedule a special meeting for February 1st, which is a week from today on a Thursday.
We can't.
You can't? Okay.
I mean, I have no voting, but
Well, you just don't know, though. If other people don't show up, you might be voting, so.
Or Wednesday, the 31st?
Yeah, well, I don't know if there's no meetings on the calendar there.
I don't know if the room's being used.
31st is okay with me.
Yep, me too.
31st works for me. I threw it out there.
Check your calendar.
I'm good.
Okay.
31st?
I would ask just
Well-
not to set a room then, just based off of availability for what date, for the meeting date, until I'm able to check.
Okay, well, why don't we do this? We'll make a motion to tentatively meet on Wednesday, January 31st at 7 PM at a place in Town Hall to be determined. And then in the meantime, we'll have something and we can respond as things develop. And maybe it won't be necessary, but. Is everyone okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want us to make a motion, or is it just okay that we have that?
Yeah, do a motion.
Okay.
Do a motion to set.
Can someone
special-
please make a motion that we meet at that time?
I make a motion for a special meeting on January 31st at Town Hall,
7 PM?
7 PM to discuss
Okay.
officer nominations.
All right, will we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt has seconded it. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of meeting at a special meeting tentatively next January 31st at 7 PM, somewhere in Town Hall. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you. 9B, draft regulation change, cannabis sales and distribution, amended draft. Did Ms. Barkowski want to speak to that?
For cannabis, I don't know if the New York commissioners have had an opportunity to review the last and final draft of the cannabis regulations that were being proposed, since we had a change in the makeup of the commission. I think it's important for them to review what has been previously done before we can have a conversation. The long and the short of where we can left off, and maybe Mr. Timmerman can speak to this as well, because he did draft the draft regulations, is we have no public hearing set. We do have a moratorium currently on cannabis sales. It is set to expire in May. Before then, you should really have some form of a regulation in place in which direction you would like to go, to either prohibit or to allow in whatever zones.
I can send this draft number 2 out to the other commissioners who don't have it yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Okay.
That would be great.
Yeah, I'll do that. And the only other thing we're waiting for is attorney opinion, the attorney to look at it.
Yes, I wasn't sure if you wanted to wait until we had the final wording for the verbiage that we want to put forward to public hearing
Okay.
before the attorney looked at.
Sure.
It's a chicken or the egg kind of debate on which is the best way. I don't want to have him review multiple drafts.
Yeah.
And
All right.
Well, it won't be the same attorney at this point,
it
will
will
it?
definitely not be the same attorney.
Okay,
That's where
so we will look at more delays then, very likely, right?
I do
Because the other one was supposed to already be looking at it, I thought, right?
The other one did have a copy of the draft regulations.
Yeah.
They did not receive a response.
Okay,
That is true.
so basically, we're just gonna keep this on our radar, is that fair to say at this time?
If you would like to keep it on your agenda, I would ask that the commission be ready to have a discussion on it, perhaps for the next meeting, on finalizing the text that they want to put forward to schedule, to open an application and to schedule a public hearing.
Okay, thank you. The next item would be C, revision of zoning fee schedule.
So looking at the zoning fee schedule, we have the same kind of issue. I believe everyone has a copy of it. I'm sorry, I missed your last meeting, so I believe I was only here for the first meeting with the new zoning fees. But I was going through and trying to update the fee schedule. While doing it, I did realize though that some of the fee schedule doesn't really reflect the zoning regulations and the verbiage used in the zoning regulations. And I do have draft potential changes that I would like to at some point present to the commission with the chairman's approval to make sure I'm not updating the fee schedule that in turn I will have to turn around and update because we're changing the names of certain permits to be a little bit more reflective of what they are. For example, I want to change an excavation permit to an excavation/fill or fill permit because it's required for any kind of earth moving. Right now, none of those words are even used in our fee schedule, so I believe it's under earth moving. Or you had to find it by earth moving.
So if I may, it's fair to say that it's kind of coupled, right? The fee schedule and the regs, and it makes sense. So again, we just want to do our due diligence and keep it on our radar, but we want to do it right, so better to be slower and do it right than fast and have people say that there were mistakes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Did you have anything else you wanted to add at this time?
No, but I do have copies of those regulations, so
Oh.
if the commission would like, I'd be happy to pass them out.
Oh, please feel free to do so.
Thank you. I meant to get in here earlier today.
While you do that, do you mind if I move on?
Please do.
Next item, number 10, is commissioner comments and informal discussion. Item A, regarding cannabis sales. We have in our audience Amanda Ostrowitz of SLAP LLC. I believe she had some items to hand out as well. A big pile.
Hopefully, this will be a more fun subject today. I was
And
told
we-
there was no protection, so I cut a couple trees unfortunately, but hopefully this will make it all easier for everyone to follow along.
And we're gonna give you about 15 minutes if that works for you, Amanda.
Yeah, and
Thank
if you
you.
guys want to ask more questions, more time.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I am on the correct one that I've been referencing. Yeah, my name is Amanda Osterwitz, 63 Green Tree Drive, Glastonbury, Connecticut. I am here to discuss adult use cannabis in Brookfield, and by way of background, I am an attorney, but I am not a municipal attorney, so I can't help with the prior problems. But I run a consulting firm called Slap Consulting. I've been in the cannabis space since 2014, and we specialize in site selection strategy for cannabis operators all over the country. We help them figure out what town they're going to operate out of and why, out of what property, and how we get someone to lease or sell that property to us, whether it's available or not, and help them with their government policy. And so in the last 18 months alone, we've secured about 30 properties for cannabis operators across the country. In fact, 2 of the licenses that were issued in Connecticut were to myself, and I've cited those in Canton and Hamden. But in the spirit of cooperation, I've also been hired by several of the other companies to place their licenses. So our team collectively has real estate experience, government affairs experience, and legal experience, about 35 in the cannabis space. So with that, just to kind of give you a sense of the sites that we've done across Connecticut. So in Canton, former Bank of America building. In Stratford, this is actually a rendering. The building itself is a hovel of a former restaurant right off of 95 that's going to look like this when it is finished. In Stamford, we're pending at the Bank of America in Japan. In Hamden, we're fully approved at Keating Automotive, and in Manchester on the 5th, we should be getting approved this site and Starbucks. So these are for national operators as well as local. But the group I'm here on behalf of is called Debbie's Dispensary. So they own about 25 sites nationally and have about 200 employees. They operate out of Arizona, Ohio, and California. And their team has a background between real estate and legal and government. In fact, one of the principals was the mayor of Flagstaff for several terms. So a very diverse group that's been very successful in cannabis. And they won 4 of the licenses in the recent lottery. So 3 retail licenses and 1 micro cultivation license. So a very sophisticated group. And just to give you a sense of who they are, on the next page, these are just some of the graphics of some of their stores. They like to do a lot of these natural, reclaimed wood looks. It's very simple. The name like Debbie's, it's meant to be, a nice community, local feel. And that's the kind of business they are. They're a family-run business. And so just wanted to start by giving you some background on the company and why I'm here. The next thing I want to talk to you guys about is just some general considerations when you're considering cannabis in your community. And then lastly, I'm going to turn over to kind of the property and what we propose and why we think this is going to be a good site and a good opportunity for town. And the reason why we came here today is we've seen these draft regulations that have been up for quite some time and not really moving forward, and kind of got the sense you're waiting for an operator to show up with interest and maybe make a case. So here I am. So in just considering, cannabis in your community, there's a lot of different things that people talk about. And so let's start with the fun one, revenue potential, right? When adult use was passed in Connecticut, they created a 3% sales tax that goes directly to the municipal government. People in Brookfield are purchasing cannabis just down the road in Danbury and elsewhere, and so that revenue is leaving the town. And, a mile away, closer, that revenue can be going into the town. Our estimates suggest that a store in Brookfield on Federal Road could do about $600,000 to $750,000 per month in gross revenue. And with the 3% sales tax, that'd be about $270,000 per year to the city, which is about $2.7 million over the decade, not insignificant. Those dollars are going to be spent down the road, so it'd be great to see them come into the community here. The next thing we want to talk about is zoning. In the draft, we saw, robust zoning. It was actually really great to see, because a lot of towns early on went purely industrial. They're like, all right, we're going to go stick it out of sight, out of mind. And when there was 18, medical operators, people would drive to an industrial zone to get their medicine because they had no choice. But now we're seeing it in main retail corridors, and you can see the butter store that's, just across the edge, and it's clean, nice looking site. They're not having issues, and so in order for a site and regulations to be viable in Brookfield, they'll really need to be allowing it in a commercial zone as drafted, because otherwise a store won't come, right? We're not gonna come and hide in an industrial corridor when everyone's just gonna drive down the street further to Federal and go to Butter. So we were grateful to see that in the proposals, and we think it's strong, and a lot of the concerns that come up will also be addressed by the fact that it is proposed as a special permit. And so with that, before we go into some of the things that I just want to talk about job creation, right? These aren't going to be huge stores. So this isn't 50, 60 jobs, right? That's a cultivation facility, and this is smaller, but it's going to have about 6 full-time employees and 8 part-time employees. And there's positions everywhere from receptionist to general managers. And one of the things that's really unique about the cannabis industry is we have very good competitive starting salaries. And there aren't people that have been in it for 20 years that then get the higher level positions. Companies are forced to train and cultivate talent within. And so these are really good jobs with opportunity for growth. And what you'll see is companies that have multiple stores, the person who comes in to start that store comes from another store, and they continue to grow up. And so it's really nice because we're coming in with competitive salaries and benefits from day one. We also provide employee training throughout, because there is, again, no one coming in experienced in this. So there's a lot of job development in that. Now, another thing we always, we're not ones that want to hide the bag here, right? We're going to just talk about all the things that are going to come up. So traffic is one people always worry about when it comes to new uses and cannabis in general. And what's nice is that the ITE, the International Traffic Engineers, they actually have numbers for this. In fact, they had them in their 10th edition for TripGen, and now in the 11th edition. And they're known to be particularly conservative. And so they're showing, 18.91 trips per 1,000 gross floor area. So there's numbers to calculate this on. These aren't hypotheticals. They're done with true data points, and you can look at the impacts on traffic. And, when you look at 18.91 trips, that's not 18.91 vehicles. A trip is a car in and a car out. So cut that in half. It's not crazy amounts of traffic. And that's for peak TripGen. They also are doing parking demand, and the 6th edition just came out this fall. And so this is not the first edition they've had cannabis parking. In fact, they reduced the numbers. And the IT is, known to be conservative. So the fact that the numbers are coming down is showing that they're getting more data points. And these are very reliable figures. So they're now looking at 5.55 spaces per 1,000 feet of gross floor area. And whether a town's ordinance or not requires that when I'm looking at a site, I'm always thinking about ITE numbers because I don't want to ever come before a planning and zoning commission not prepared to say that we have enough parking. Security, everyone worries about security. There are so many requirements in the state regulations when it comes to security. These facilities are designed with security in mind every inch of the way, whereas a liquor store, people can just walk in and pull stuff off a shelf. That will never happen in these stores. We've got, in an average 3,000 square foot store, 25 to 40 cameras on every inch. No one can walk in the front door and get onto the sales floor without first having their ID checked. At that point, you can't see any product. So let's say, God forbid, an 18-year-old walks in the front door. All they're going to see is blank walls of reception. Their ID is going to be checked, and they're going to be booted back out. So they will never even see the product, much the way they could in a liquor store where they wouldn't be permitted to buy. All employees are trained on it, so we don't just say security is the security guard's job. Security is the entire company's job. So there are robust efforts to understand and prevent diversion. There's robust requirements. Even just for receiving your packages, the state makes us put in a separate vestibule where the vendor from the company who's bringing the products has to stay in. They can't even come into our store. We have to go into another room, verify it, and then they have to exit. They can't even see our back of house. So it's very robust, and the state comes in even at 0% before you build to come in and critique your floor plans and make sure everything is correct. They're so intense that in one of my buildings, we literally had to destroy a vault that the vault wasn't good enough for the state, although it was, once the building around this vault was knocked over, they built a new Bank of America around the same vault, and it was good enough for millions of dollars of cash, but not for the cannabis business. So all goes to say there's a lot of requirements there. So I actually brought in just a floor plan here, just to give you a sense. This is not the floor plan for this particular one, this is for a different site of mine, but just to give you a sense of how robust and how designed all of this is around security. So if you look from starting at the left in the middle, I'll just kind of give you a little sense of what the experience would be, but you come in a vestibule here and you'll see there's a door to the left, and that goes into a waiting room where reception checks ID. Only once they determine your ID is good and there's appropriate space on the floor will they buzz you through to the second door. So everything functions as a man trap, and nobody is going to be able to enter through an exit. As you'll see, the exit is also a separate door on the opposite side of the floor. It's man trap style as well. And the state is extremely strict about that, so you don't have to worry about anyone just sliding in. It's just not going to happen. The customer will then enter onto a sales floor, and you'll see it's a jewelry store design. This isn't a bodega or a liquor store where people walk in and grab what they want off a shelf. It's all behind a counter and entered into a point of sale system. The sales associates fulfill the order, the customer goes out the exit. The whole other half of that building, that's all back of house. Customer can't see into that, can't access that. And every single room here is not accessed by all employees. We do badging on all doors so that only the employees who need access to the vault have access to the vault. All employees have access to the break room. Not all employees have access to inventory or vault. So these are built with design, security by design. Yeah.
4 minutes.
Oh. So just in talking with, about Brookfield and cannabis policy in Brookfield, it's always important to look at a competitive analysis, right? That's how we ended up in Brookfield. And so you can see all these towns in red that are around. Those are all towns that are prohibitive. Brookfield we put in yellow because that's what we're talking about today. And then you can see there's the Butter store and the Botanist store. So Butter is very close by, and it's probably getting quite a bit, well, I know it's doing quite well. We think this would be a very suitable site nearby. When we look at, what would we like to see here in Brookfield, we definitely want to see the same, we like the draft regulations, but we definitely want to see the same setbacks that were in the medical regulations that are in place here. We think it's very important to stay away from sensitive uses, and so, those ones require 1,000 linear feet from public schools, private schools, nursery schools, daycares, parks, playgrounds. So we would request that you mirror the medical ones because we don't want to request anything less stringent than that. And we think it'd make sense to also cap it at 1. Given that Danbury has 87,600 in population and a cap of 2, it would seem prudent that in a town of around 17,000 people, maybe you start with 1. You can always add more later though, if it goes well. So the targets that we're looking at is 99 Federal Boulevard next to Savers. It's been vacant for going almost on 5 years now. Banks are no longer being used in the same way, although there are quite a few here. And there's ample parking. It's about 3,200 square feet. And we have a landlord, David Hawley, who is a big landlord here in town. He is supportive of the use. He doesn't have any debt that would restrict our use in there. He doesn't have any restrictive covenants that would hurt us. So it's very hard to find buildings that are workable and landlords that are supportive and significant taxpayers here in town. But we really like it because it's nowhere near any residential. It's at the edge of town. I'm not asking for us to come into the heart of town. It certainly meets all those setbacks and then some. We think by being in a main corridor here, that's definitely going to enhance the maximum revenue that the town could receive from this. And also the state of the building. It's in great condition in that they've actually demoed the inside for us. There's ADA bathrooms, and they've really maintained the building well, so we could get up and running very quickly. In fact, banks and cannabis dispensaries have nearly identical numbers in the ITE manuals. When you do the comparison of the prior use of a drive-through bank to a cannabis dispensary, you generally have 3 or 4 fewer peak hour trips on a weekday and like 3 or 4 more peak hour weekend site visits. So the way that like a restaurant or a drive-through tends to peak dramatically at certain times, this doesn't. It ebbs and flows in a bit more. So this building was built for a use with similar traffic and visitation patterns. Lastly, I put in a proposed timeline just because, not to suggest what your timeline should be, but these stores need to be open by January. That is when these will expire at the state level if they are not opened. So and there's not gonna be a later round of licensing. It's been rumored prior, but now that the state changed some rules and allowed the cultivators to each get 2 bonus dispensaries, the market will be saturated, and it's unlikely we'll ever see more. And so I kind of just put a proposed timeline together to kind of show that, you know, if in a perfect world I could have everything I wanted, and at the next meeting you guys adopted these regulations, and we did everything in the fastest, I know it won't happen. This is demonstrative, but to say that if we do everything as timely as possible, get our application put together, ace it in a public hearing, we still wouldn't be looking at the store opening before October. Because, right, there's gonna have to be a recommendation from the planning commission. Then the zoning commission's gonna have to send that off to WestCog, right, come in and do a public hearing. And then, let's just say that happens on the 14th of March, magic world, right? You guys were able to accept our application, won't be heard until the next meeting at the end of March. And then, let's say that's approved, we still would need 45 days to expire before we could close on this property or this lease, because an appeal window. And while that's happening, we would be, you know, submitting all the building permits and everything so we could get going as fast as humanly possible. And then, you know, we've got about 12 to 16 weeks of build-out time. So the reason why I say this is to say, if this is something that Brookfield's gonna do, I urge expedience in the process, because we're on a ticking time clock here. And I think there's a great economic opportunity here, and a chance to make a building that's been sitting vacant for a long time produce positively for the town. And I welcome any questions.
If I may, Amanda, I should say that, you know, this is just an informational session. It's informal, it's non-binding, so.
Of course.
Any questions or comments we make don't imply any approval.
Of course. I would never assume otherwise.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions
Yeah, I
or
have a
comments? Mr.
couple questions.
Capucci?
Fire away.
Are there any territorial or conflicts, you know, like a liquor store, you can't have a liquor store within certain feet between, you know, liquor store A and liquor store B?
No.
Because of Butter being down.
Butter's
Sutter Road.
1.25 miles away, so like I know that there had been something between, like you guys had like something between medical establishments in the past that was like 7,000, but this wouldn't be medical, so that wouldn't have applied. But there's no rule at the state. In fact, like in West Hartford, there's two blocks apart because they limited it to such a small zoning area. So it's town by town that gets to set that. The towns are allowed to set their cap. They're allowed to set a buffer in between requirement. And so that's just up to the local regulations and what you guys want. But certainly we'd encourage that. Same way we'd encourage a cap of 1.
Understood. And then going back to the footprint of the building, you were talking about man traps. Are these traditional, like data center, 2 doors, buzz in, first door closed, then open the second door? Or are you talking man traps, it's an open door, but you're in a hallway and?
Second door can't open when the first door can open when the second door is open.
right.
Yeah, so, but because this particular building has a separate, has 2 doors on the front and a separate one here, what we would do is we would have this one be able to go straight into reception, and then you could buzz right into, you could open it straight into, we'd block it off like that, and you'd open it straight into a waiting area that has no cannabis visible where reception would do it, and then you'd buzz onto the floor. And then on the way out, you'd have a true man trap because it's a separate door over here. If you only have one point of ingress and egress, then you have to structure it a bit differently. But because you have this other door here, you'd only need a true man trap style at the exit so that nobody is coming in through an exit who shouldn't be.
Well, that's why, and that's where I was going with it, because then my second part of that is, per ADA regulations and fire code and stuff. As far as, again, liabilities of that.
We've built them, the state is super aware of all of that, and we've built out multiple of these. I'm not a builder, but I know that we've been able to make them fire safe. And they do it in a way where, like, even though a lot of things are badge requirement, there's a way where you make the door directional so it can exit out. And so fire escape routes will always be considered in the building permit process.
That's why I'm asking.
We've done the calculations of like maximum feet to exit. So we've been through that rigorously, but that's where I bring in the engineer, which I am not.
No, understood. And like I said, in building data centers, a lot of the security elements of that are critical. And you're right, banks and dispensaries are very similar. Though products are different, the structures are truly the same.
Yeah. Any other question?
No, I'm good.
Thank
answered
you.
my
Anyone
question.
else?
I have a question.
Mr. Turner?
You mentioned cameras. Is there a manned security person there at any
Yeah.
time?
Yeah, we'll
24
have,
hours a day, or?
so, no, we'll have it during all hours of business and an hour before and an hour after, but we have 24-hour camera and off-site. So 24 hours a day, the cameras are monitored off-site by a third party. But there's also no cannabis is out of the vault. So all cannabis goes into a vault every single night. And like, there's nothing that, would be accessible. Same thing with all cash. So it's, the way a jewelry store puts everything away at night but doesn't keep a security guard there, even though they have valuable goods, they're in a vault.
Have you had any issues as far as security goes with
No, in fact, we have an entire memo that's, there's a link to in here, but I didn't share this digitally. But in fact, what we've seen is crime rates decreasing around us because our security presence is so hard. All the cameras, all the lighting, we have a huge amount of light that's required. If we were able to have an ordinance here and go forward, we'd be putting forth a photometric plan as part of our site plan approval if that was requested. And so you'll see, by brightening the area and having a lot of presence, we take something that was otherwise vacant, like this bank, which might attract, vagrancy issues, and we reduce those around us. And there's actually, in our memo, there's quotes from a police chief in a town in Port Hueneme, California, where he has 10 stores, and he said, we've not seen any increase in crime. In fact, in some areas, a decrease. But the studies all over the country are showing either no change or slight decreases in crime surrounding dispensaries.
As far as the working operational side of this, are there codas or two-person security codes, or you're talking key cards getting into certain areas, or vault, getting into the vault?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a two-person to open the shop, close the shop,
Yeah, you're never alone. And security also stays during closing. So the customer, there's never going to be a manager leaving by themselves. There's no one leaving the store by themselves. There's going to be a minimum of 2 people, typically a manager, one of the sales associates, and the security person all leaving together. But then in addition, for other stuff, whenever, we only get 2 to 3 deliveries a week of product, and they're sprinter vans, but we also stagger the times of those so that nobody can create trackable patterns. And back in the day, they used to have to, before now there's a lot of access to banking, there wasn't, we'd stagger the dates in which people were paid, and so that people weren't tracking people getting paid in cash, but everyone's paid on the wire like a normal ACH payment at this stage.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Pratt.
Amanda, you have, Debbie's Dispensaries they possess 4 Connecticut licenses, 2 adult use. What's a hybrid?
A hybrid is a combination of both medical and adult use. So the medical space required you to have a pharmacist on staff, and the store gets configured a little differently. And those ones who are all here medical before, they got to convert into hybrid when adult use started and do both. Whereas the adult use, you don't have a pharmacist on staff. It's not required. Anyone over 21 can shop there. Whereas in the hybrid stores, they actually have separate supply. They have to preserve a certain number of product to make sure the medical patients are served, as opposed to whoever comes first, we're going to give it all. They actually have rules and requirements around that. So they serve both medical patients and adult use.
Okay, thank you.
We are talking, as far as product, we're talking regular cannabis, edibles, oils, everything.
All the form factors. And again, you're not going to see any product in the stores because Connecticut has really robust requirements. So in some states, maybe you went and you visited Colorado and you asked for an eighth of flour. Well, you've seen them come out and do the candy shop model where they weigh it and you see them package it. In Connecticut, everything has to be packaged before it comes to the store, packaged, sealed, childproof. So you can't see the product. It has to be in opaque packaging. They're not allowed to have more than one color on the package. God forbid there's blue and black. But it is very child appealing, and it is therefore odorless because they're not packaging on site and everything is sealed. You don't have odors emitting, but we still outfit all the stores with carbon scrubbers.
I was going to ask, would you be able to provide some actual retail tax money received to different establishments?
Yeah.
3%?
Yeah, there's every single month the state is putting out a bulletin. They're publicly available on the DCP's website of the total sales numbers, and you can
By site?
It's not by site, but I can tell you that right now, the butter site is on target. They've done their current, if they keep doing at the same rate, they're at 7.5 million right now, and
Year.
for annualized. And that's less than what they'll have potential to do, and that's why I don't think two stores are equally gonna, I think we're gonna be splitting the basket a little bit, but they're not at maximum sales at this point because the state has a limitation on purchase amounts. You can only purchase a half an ounce now, and previously, for their first, last 6, 8, 9 months of that, they could only sell a quarter ounce because there's not enough production in the state yet.
That 7.5, is that the state's return on 3%, or is that the?
No, that's the
gross?
total that's the gross, and so that's where a number like.
But anecdotally, I've heard the state's been very poor and slow in actually returning the money to the establishments.
They don't do it that way. It's
We give it directly to the town. I believe the way it's being done is it's being remitted directly.
Town and the state, or just?
Yeah, you have separate for the state and separate for the town. They're different earmarked.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you said it was the state, so the town's getting 3%?
The town gets 3, the state has a whole nother 10.
Okay. Thank
So the 3 is directly to the town. So the towns that definitely, the key is like now Brookfield, people are going and shopping in Danbury and the money's going straight to Danbury, not in Brookfield's pocket. And I think on top of that, like you have a lot of people coming from other areas, coming here to go to Costco and Kohl's and BJ's, and so I think there's a lot of tax revenue to be gained in that, but also people come to town for cannabis, they spend money on other things too.
Danbury currently has 2.
Mm-hmm. One is on the complete opposite end of town. I put it in here like in the map, and it's the Botanist. So that's a
That's the
public
one over,
land.
I think on Mill Plain or.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in there.
Yeah, right in
Yeah.
front of,
But this one would actually, I think, do better than Butter. I think more people are coming this way off the highway. I think it's a much better parking situation. It's much better lit.
that's a tough
Used
spot.
to be next to the Chick-fil-A, so you'd be ready to eat.
Perfect, right,
Right.
yeah.
Lunches.
Food, everything.
Well, you can save on your munchies at Savers.
Right.
Let's hope not.
Any other questions? Thank you, Amanda.
Absolutely.
Very
Thanks
much.
for letting me present.
Next item up is adjournment, unless there's any other informal comments. Chair, I'd be happy to entertain a motion.
I make a motion to adjourn.
All right,
I'll second.
have a motion and a second. You getting all this, Dawn? Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Thank you. Next meeting is February 8th.
No.
Oh, we got
Next
January
regular meeting, our
31st.
special meeting is the 31st.